Good morning and happy Pride. Thank you for joining us for this video service of the First Unitarian Church of Alton, Illinois on the 7th day of June, 2020. I am Tracy Howe-Koch, and our speaker today is our minister, Amy Brooks. We acknowledge that we create this worship service on Illinois land, colonized by white Europeans through the labor of enslaved Africans. We invite you to remember the heritage of that land that holds you in your location today. We welcome everyone to this online home of comfort, spirit, justice, and hope. We are Unitarian Universalists. We begin our worship with a prelude by our accompanist, Joy Heft.
If you have a chalice or a candle at home, I invite you to join me as I light mine. We hallow this time together by kindling the lamp of our heritage. Our opening words this morning come from Faith Rocket. We gather this morning in holy imperfection as works in progress, as people whose stories are now far from finished. Let us enter this hour with honest, glad hearts, joined as one people together with praise and thanksgiving. Rocket also provided our prayer today. Let us be in the attitude of prayer. Source of love, source of all, be with us in this moment. Teach us to be still and to cultivate patience. Teach us to be open and to cultivate peace. Teach us to be fierce and to cultivate protection for those in this world most in need of it now. Amen. Blessed be.
Our reading today is a West African folktale titled Why the Spider Has 8 Thin Legs. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there lived a spider named Anansi. Anansi's wife was a very good cook, but always Anansi loved to taste the food that others in the village had made for themselves and for their families. One day, he stopped by Rabbit's house. Rabbit was his good friend. "There are greens in your pot," cried Anansi excitedly. Anansi loves greens. "They are not quite done," said Rabbit, "but they will be soon. Stay and eat with me." "I would love to, Rabbit, but I have some things to do," Anansi said hurriedly. If he waited at Rabbit's house, Rabbit would certainly give him jobs to do. "I know," said Anansi. "I'll spin a web. I'll tie one end around my leg and one end to your pot. When the greens are done, tug on the web and I'll come running." Rabbit thought this was a great idea, and so it was done. "I smell beans," Anansi sniffed excitedly as he ambled along. "Delicious beans cooking in a pot." "Come eat our beans with us," said the monkeys. "They are almost done." "I would love to, Father Monkey," said Anansi. And again, Anansi suggested he spin a web, with one end tied around his leg and one end tied to the bean pot. Father Monkey thought this was a great idea. All his children thought so too, and so it was done. "I smell sweet potatoes," Anansi sniffed happily as he ambled along. "Sweet potatoes and honey, I do believe." "Anansi," called his friend Hog, "my pot is full of sweet potatoes and honey. Come, share my food with me." "I would love to," said Anansi. And again, Anansi suggested he spin a web, with one end tied around his leg and one end tied to the sweet potato pot. His friend Hog thought that was a great idea, and so it was done. By the time Anansi arrived at the river, he had one web tied for each of his 8 legs. This was a wonderful idea, Anansi told himself proudly. "I wonder whose pot will be ready first." Just then, Anansi felt a tug at his leg. "Ah," said Anansi, "that is the web string tied to Rabbit's greens." He felt another and another. Anansi was pulled 3 ways at once. "Oh dear," said Anansi as he felt the 4th web string pull. Just then, he felt the 5th web string tug, and then the 6th, and then the 7th, and then the 8th. Anansi was pulled this way and that way as everyone pulled on the web strings at once. His legs were pulled thinner and thinner. Anansi rolled and tugged himself into the river. When all the webs had washed away, Anansi pulled himself painfully up to the shore. Oh my, sighed Anansi. Perhaps that was not such a good idea after all. To this day, Anansi the spider has 8 very thin legs, and he never got any food that day at all.
If you're fortunate enough to have any young people in your life, you've likely heard use of the word oof. It's a really helpful word. If you haven't got to the bottom of the meaning of it yet, I'm here to help you. Disclaimer, I am a not young person, so there will be young people who will be thinking, well, that's completely wrong. But I take it to mean that you can use it in almost any situation where someone has shared something and you don't know how to respond. And it could mean, well, the thing you're talking about doesn't seem that important to me, so the only answer I got for you is oof. And it could mean all the way down to, that is a serious, serious problem, so serious that I don't have the words to convey my feeling about it. And it's used in so many ways, and most often when I hear it used, when I see it used on the internet, it is because someone has made some kind of mistake. Now, a mistake is what our friend Anansi definitely made in our reading today. And I just want to look at the nature of that mistake. What was it that happened, what caused the situation where the poor little spider was stretched so thin between all the various meals that he wanted to eat? And he definitely wanted to have a finger in the pot. He wanted to have a taste of all of the meals of all of his friends, sure. And also, I noticed the very first place he stopped with Rabbit. Did you notice it? The comment was, well, he worried if he stayed at Rabbit's house and waited for the meal to be ready, that Rabbit would ask him to do some work. So my feeling in the story is that it was, yes, he wanted to have a little of all of the meals around him, but more that he wasn't willing to do the work in the relationship that would benefit him with food. And of course, as you listen to the reading, you know, at the end of it, he ended up with no food at all. He didn't get a taste of any of the delicious meals that were cooking, and more importantly, he wasn't able to stay in relationship with any of the people or any of the animals that he interacted with. And I guess I get that feeling, and maybe you have that feeling too in life in general, that we are stretched between so many things, so many opportunities, so many invitations, so many places that we could be dedicating our time and our energy. And it was definitely the case before the lockdown or shutdown or whatever you want to call it. Those of you with children, driving them to this activity or another. Those of you without children, your own activities, taking you so many places. And I've noticed that even being at home, that invitation to stretch yourself thin has not gone away. I receive dozens of invitations in my email inbox a day to attend this Zoom call, this webinar, this workshop. And the constraints on a human's time mean you just can't do it all. And the thing that's really difficult is that some things are really worthy. Some things are really important. And so we have to sort of make a decision to stop at one house, to stop and be with one friend, to be in community in one place. And that was the mistake that Anansi made, was not stopping, because if you think about it, those friends cooked meals every day. And if he had taken the time to stop and be with Rabbit and to do the work of being in relationship with Rabbit, he would have got the food from Rabbit, and another day he could have gone on to the other houses, to the other friends. And to put another spin on it, pardon the pun, there's another part of the story that really made me stop and think. Because when we hear the story about Anansi and his 8 legs being stretched, pulled by this web in all these different directions, and he realized the fullness of his mistake, okay? But these legs made me think of, as a Unitarian Universalist, our 7 and I trust, soon to be 8 principles, and the way they stretch us in really good and healthy ways. The way that we seek to remain connected with all of the principles, because when we do so, we stretch in ways that make us grow. And there are times that we need to spend intentional time with one principle over another, and we don't let go of our connection with the other principles, but we stay in relationship with that principle that is calling to us at that time, and we dedicate ourselves to the work of that relationship, to being in community with that principle and with the communities that that principle impacts. Now, you heard me reference an 8th principle, and some of you watching may not have heard of any of the principles, but if that's you, I encourage you to go to the UUA website and look up our 7 principles. And some of you might not have heard of the 8th. It's not an official principle of the UUA, as it hasn't been yet formally adopted. But if you haven't heard of it, you can look it up online, but I think it's important enough for me to read it to you now. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. So that's the 8th principle that the UUA and member congregations and individuals within the UUA are working to affirm and formally adopt. And it is my conviction that there is no greater time than now for us to be about that work. Because if we see the UUA as a spider with 8 legs, and we leave off this 8th principle, then we are stretched unevenly between the 7 others, when the 8th is where so much work remains to be done, particularly now. Particularly knowing that even with the restrictions on movement of people under a lockdown, under stay-at-home orders, the rate of police violence against Black and brown bodies has not dropped in any way whatsoever, particularly in the heels of a series of hate crimes against Black and brown people that threaten their liberty and take their lives, particularly now in Pride Month. A time when we uplift and celebrate all the colors of the rainbow and consider all of those colors as beautiful and worthy, and often not the colors of Black and brown. Particularly now, this is the time to not make the mistake of not spending time in this community, in this household. I'm going to read this principle to you again. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. Friends, I believe the time is now to uplift this principle, to be doing the work of this principle, and to adopt this principle as individuals, as member congregations, and as the Unitarian Universalist Association. And it is my conviction that if we fail now, that will be a greater mistake, a more deadly mistake than even the word oof is able to convey. Amen.
We offer a gentle reminder that this community of faith is supported only by your giving. We need each other. And in times of trial, we need each other even more. You can mail your gift to First Unitarian Church, Post Office Box 494, Alton, Illinois 62002, or you can give electronically by searching for First Unitarian Church of Alton on the Givelify app or via the link on our webpage. Give what you will, for you are a very generous people. If you know it, please join me in our offering prayer. May this offering equip us to inspire love and to seek justice.
When we gather together in person back in the ordinary times, this is where we would pause and share our thoughts about the message of the day or the theme of the month. But these are extraordinary times. So I invite you to take a pause for reflection right where you are now. Thinking about the service today, what was helpful? What was hard? What sparked inspiration? And thinking about the theme of June, mistakes, what is the best learning you ever got from making a mistake? You might like to take a few notes or create something artistic or just stay with your thoughts. Feel free to pause the video if you like, or you might choose to continue to reflect through the next piece of music.
I hope that time of reflection was fruitful for you. Perhaps you will share the fruits of your labor with someone significant to you. Also, I invite you to post your thoughts in the comment sections of this video. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel while you're here. Here are our announcements for this week. The men's lunch will meet on Thursday, June 11th via Zoom. Please contact the church office if you have an event or announcement that you would like us to share via our weekly Church This Week email. If you are interested in receiving our weekly email, please send your contact details to church@firstuualton.org. General Assembly this year will be entirely virtual. We hope that you will join the live stream of the General Assembly worship service on Sunday, June 28th. I believe that's open to everybody. And remember to join us next week for our virtual service here on YouTube. Dennis Fisher and Peg Flack will be leading us in worship on June 14th. Thank you.
And now, if you have a lit chalice or a candle near you, I invite you to join me in extinguishing the chalice. The light of truth and meaning cannot be put out. We are keepers of this flame until we meet again. Receive these closing words. Just as you already are, you are a blessing to the day. Go with that understanding into the waiting world.